Welcome to the College Football Bros, the official podcast of the Shants. And now, here are your hosts, Michael, Ryan, and Trey Newman.
Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by the brother who's always responding to YouTube comments.
Yeah, I try to. That's me, Ryan Newman.
And by the other brother who hates our fans.
Wow, that couldn't be more untrue, but that's me, Trey Newman.
Wow.
All right, well, despite Trey hating you, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CFB Bros. And be sure to tune in this Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern on Twitter and YouTube. We're going to have our second game day live stream Q&A. Last Saturday we did this, had a lot of people on there on Twitter and YouTube watching us, came with some good questions, some college football questions and some random ones. We gave our favorite vegetables. So,
yeah,
maybe ask us our favorite fruit this weekend. That's, again, 11 a.m. Eastern. Follow us on Twitter and YouTube. We'll go live there. Come with questions. All right. We thought about doing, by the way, a big nude kickoff. And just doing it naked. Maybe this Saturday, that's when we'll try it.
We'll do it one of these Saturdays for sure.
All right.
It's on our OnlyFans account, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get into the Week 5 recap. TCU won at Texas 33-31 after Keontae Ingram fumbled on first and goal at the 1 yard line with 2.5 minutes left. Trey, what were your thoughts on this one?
First of all, it's amazing that Gary Patterson is now 7-2 against Texas since joining the Big 12. That's pretty astounding stat.
That's crazy.
But looking back now at two games for Texas, the performance by the Texas defense in game one, or I guess in Big 12 play at least, game one against Texas Tech wasn't just an aberration. TCU was able to move the ball easily on the Longhorns throughout Saturday. They put up 458 yards in Austin. Max Duggan actually outshined Sam Ehlinger on Saturday. He led the Horned Frogs in rushing, had that game-winning 26-yard touchdown run. He was impressive. But Michael, you just touched on it. I mean, this game could have gone either way. It was back and forth, and obviously that fumble at the goal line pretty much ended up deciding it. But and it was just a bad play considering it was first down. He didn't have to reach out.
Yeah.
If it was third or fourth, I maybe, obviously I can understand it.
Right.
But overall, though, the offense, they did enough. Their defense just continues to be a liability.
Yeah, and the offense did enough, but it also wasn't great. I mean, it took a while to get going. Ehlinger wasn't, like you said, Ehlinger was kind of outshined by Duggan. You certainly didn't expect that going into this game. So it's just not good down into Austin. Texas is not back. They can't seem to put all the pieces together. This was it. Like, this was supposed to be the year. Like, senior quarterback, ton of returning production, no excuses, continued system. They just don't have it. So massively disappointed. I mean, they only have one loss. It's not like it's over or anything like that, but it's just they're in a crapshoot. We thought they'd be a little bit head and shoulders above teams like Texas Tech and TCU, but they're not. They're just right there.
No, yeah, that's the thing is, they very well could have won this game and they'd be 3-0. But I still think fans wouldn't be all that happy because they're not looking like the top 10 team that people were hoping they'd be going into the year. And especially just looking back a few years ago when Herman was hired, you didn't think they'd be performing like this. This game was kind of weird, especially at the beginning. Just so many penalties, 26 combined in the game. A lot of costly ones, especially for Texas, negating big plays. So that definitely hurt them. And obviously now Tom Herman is in trouble. The good news for him is that OU, of course, is 0-2. We'll get to that in a sec. In the Big 12,
beat them and boom.
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of be right back in business, at least with a chance to win the Big 12. Because right now there's no dominant team in the Big 12. Texas, as bad as they've looked, still has a shot for sure.
No doubt.
How about the bad beat on the total in this game? If you took the under, Yeah, the
Ugh.
safety at the end, intentional safety taken by Max Duggan and TCU just to run out the clock, ended up taking it from an under to an over. Ouch. And
That's a bad
apparently
beat, man.
it shouldn't even have counted. It should have been the holding penalty should have been accepted and yada yada. So extra bad.
Two weeks in a row where TCU's had kind of a crazy spread kind of
Yeah.
total. The week
Exactly.
before with Iowa State, it was like,
Yeah.
nuts.
All right. Well, let's get to that Iowa State Oklahoma game. Iowa State won 37-30. And that's the first time OU has lost back-to-back regular season games since 1999. Just insane.
That's crazy.
What'd you think here, Ryan?
That's a crazy stat, right? I mean, 21 years since they've lost two. Wow, I'm jealous. Yeah, man, I kind of feel bad for Spencer Rattler, just because I feel like he's maybe shouldering some of the blame here. I mean, it's not like he doesn't deserve any blame, but I mean, he was good in this game.
He was very good. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no doubt that he played certainly well enough to win, other than, that last interception that he had. But I mean, he was good overall. There's no doubt about that. It's just the OU defense. I mean, it's holding them back again. And, they're not getting enough pressure. They just had one sack in each of these past two games. Their secondary is still struggling. They get a lot of penalties. The offense this year isn't as elite to make up for some of those deficiencies that they've had defensively. And it's not just Rattler. It's the offensive line. It's the receivers not getting open as much. They don't have quite the playmakers they've had. So, it's a combo of all those things. Even though if you put Rattler on last year's team or the couple years prior, he probably would be doing even better because they had better talent around him. So, yeah, I mean, great win for Iowa State, but it's just Iowa State. Oklahoma's come down, joined the rest of the pack this year.
Yeah, I think you put it very well, both the issues with the defense and the offense for Oklahoma. We say issues for the offense. It's still
it's still
probably a top
10
5
offense,
top 10 offense, but yeah, just not quite, maybe a few points worse than last year. And I just think overall, like, OU is probably only a few points worse than last year's team, but we kind of forget that they won a lot of close games last year. They were 5-1 in one-score games. They won their overtime game. And now the difference this year, other than being just slightly worse, is that they've lost both of these two close games. So it's the margins are very slim.
Yep, they really are. And I think perhaps the biggest play of the game was, I'm going to butcher his name, Kene Ngwangu, his 85-yard kickoff return in the middle of the fourth. They were right. Oklahoma had just scored to go up 7. He had the 85-yard kickoff return to set up a really short field, and Purdy ended up running in for a touchdown. So made it a lot easier to score, and that tied it pretty quickly midway through the fourth, so that they could be right back in it. And then, of course, they were able to pull it out late.
Yep. So as far as Iowa State, I've kind of got a question for you guys. I'll make my case. So the question is, who's the favorite now in the Big 12 with Texas and OU going down? I think it's Iowa State, and I'll make that case. So OU, I would still say is the best team. I mean, maybe not by much, but I think they're the best in the Big 12. But with that 0-2 start, their chances of actually getting to the Big 12 title are not super high. Iowa State's 2-0. They've already played the best team in the conference and a pretty good team at TCU.
They hold the tiebreaker over some teams.
Exactly. And Oklahoma State, they're the other team that's probably in this conversation as far as the favorite. But they've played West Virginia and Kansas, so their remaining schedule is a lot more difficult than Iowa State. And I think skill-wise, I think the two teams are pretty even.
It comes down to their head-to-head matchup. It'll be a big one.
It might. Yeah. So yeah, and I think, I mean, it's wide open. Like, it's not like Iowa State's a dominating favorite by any means. OU and Texas are still in it.
K-State's 2-0.
K-State is still in it. So yeah, but I would say
essentially everybody but Kansas is still alive.
Yeah. I really do. If Texas like kind of looks pretty decent beating Oklahoma, if they beat Oklahoma this week, then I might kind of say might be back on the Texas wagon. But I mean, at this point, I agree. You'd kind of have to say stick with Iowa State or Okie State, but a lot will change this weekend, as it does every weekend.
Yeah, whoever wins that Oklahoma Texas matchup gets a big boost for sure. Okay, Georgia completely dominated Auburn 27-6. Their defense is insanely good, as expected. And even though I've been low on Bo Nix all offseason, I think kind of all of us have, I think they made him look worse than he actually is. I think they're going to do that to a lot of teams this year. So let's talk about how much better, though, we feel about Georgia now compared to
after the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, after the exactly first 30 minutes of the season. I mean, coming into the year, I kind of had it 50-50 between Georgia and Florida. In the East, I favored Florida slightly, I think, in part because of their schedule, avoiding Alabama. After week one, it was maybe more 55-45 in favor of Florida, but I think we're right back to 50-50, if not maybe even Georgia.
If not tilting Georgia's favor here.
I know. I think they might be a little better, but with the difference in schedule, I think the fact that they have to play Alabama is such a big difference, especially with it looking even more drastic, the difference between Alabama and everybody else in the West. So, Florida's game against A&M is definitely a lot easier than that one. But yeah, I mean, Georgia's right there, obviously, and arguably better.
Yeah, I feel light years better than I did a week ago. We obviously knew how good the defense was, but that's even actually outperformed my expectations. They completely shut down Auburn and everything Malzahn tried to do. I mean, they were just suffocating. It was a really great performance. And with that defense, Stetson Bennett, his job at this point, until maybe JT Daniels comes in, but even with him, it's basically their job just to not screw it up. In this particular game, he did what he had to do, actually played pretty well. And they were really helped by the run game. Zamir White had over 4.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. They're really going to need that going forward to take the pressure off the quarterback, and then also to help out the defense and keep them off the field.
Yeah, I guess you just wonder what was going on with the first half of Arkansas. Obviously, Juwan Mathis, but he was terrible. He was just absolutely awful. He had to have been doing better in practice, because that was, it seems like night and day difference between Mathis and Bennett. But, I guess that's just kind of what happens when you get in the flow of practice. We've seen it at other schools, of course. You go with one guy, and then, of course, backup comes in and does a lot better. USC, you guys know that. Max Brown and Darnold. But, I feel a lot better about Georgia, that's for sure, especially since they got the ground game going. Bennett's smart with the ball, at least. So, I'm not even factoring JT Daniels, which maybe he could come in and do all right. But, at this point, I think you got to stick with Bennett.
Mm-hmm. And Kyrus Jackson emerged at receiver. You were wondering who's going to emerge as that second receiver to George Pickens. Maybe Kyrus Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay. Tulsa came back from down 16-0 to win at UCF 34-26. Second year in a row, the big upset here for Tulsa. Trey, what are your thoughts on this game? And is the already typically long shot G5 playoff odds, is that pretty much done?
I mean, I guess to address that point first, the AAC, they couldn't afford any upset losses like this, because what they needed was all the top teams to be as good as possible when they play each other. Mm-hmm. And now this is beating USF now for whether you're SMU or Cincinnati.
UCF.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy.
We always do that.
Yeah, I know. But if you're SMU or Cincinnati right now, who are kind of the top unbeaten teams in the AAC, now that a win against UCF potentially isn't as impressive. I mean, it's still good, but I don't know. So I just don't see enough chances for those teams to sneak in at this point. But you never know. They need utter chaos. But as far as the game, it's funny, if you sit back and you kind of think about, you take into consideration Tulsa's near win at Oklahoma State, you kind of almost wrote that off. You're like, Okie State just wasn't that good. But Tulsa's defense played really good in that game. And they did very well here, especially in the second half. They held UCF to only 3 points, but it was kind of a weird game where UCF goes up 16-0. They got up 23-5, and you kind of said, okay, Dylan Gabriel, and the Knights are just gonna go off. But Tulsa's defense just stymied them. It was super impressive. Zach Smith, the quarterback for Tulsa, he played lights out, and ended up being, I think, their first home loss since 2016. So Good for Tulsa.
Yeah, I was impressed with Tulsa. Their defense was wow. That was surprising, and the defensive line just kind of putting pressure on Gabriel. Gabriel looked kind of flustered there in the second half. Yeah, that was impressive. But yeah, there's no way a G5 team is getting in. I mean, there was a sliver maybe of a chance if all these teams were so good. If Memphis, SMU, UCF, and Cincy were all like undefeated or whatever towards the end of the year, or whatever happens. But no, they just don't have the out of conference to do it. You need to have a marquee non-conference win, and this year didn't present it. So there's really no chance.
Yeah, and Louisiana over in the Sun Belt. I mean, they got Iowa State. Maybe Iowa State goes undefeated, but Louisiana doesn't really have anybody else on the schedule, especially with App State taking a loss.
And they're not dominating. They're skating by.
Right. You know? Exactly. Okay. Let's get to the rapid recaps then. What do we got, Trey?
Yeah. First, we've got Virginia and Clemson. No surprise here. Clemson pulled it out. They won by 18. Trevor Lawrence and ETN were the stars, of course. Lawrence threw 3 scores, 2 to Amari Rogers. ETN actually led Clemson in receiving, 114 yards. And Dabo and Lawrence, both after the game, indicated how Clemson overall didn't look that great. But again, it's not that bad when you don't look that great and you still win by almost 3 touchdowns. For Virginia, encouraging performance, I think, by Bronco Mendenhall's squad. They put up over 400 yards of offense with Brennan Armstrong at quarterback. And through their first 2 games, I think I'm a little bit higher on Virginia than I was in the preseason. We got South Carolina at Florida next. The Gators won this 38-24. The Kyle duo has been just dynamite to start the year. Kyle Trask threw 2 more touchdowns to Kyle Pitts. Trask and the offense, they just seem to have taken that next step, or at least a big step this year. In the first half of this game, it was setting up to be a shootout, and I was getting a little more concerned about the Gators defense, but they kind of settled down and made it at least a little bit harder on the Gamecocks. And there's still a little bit of concern with that side, getting pressure and the run D, but it's just something to watch going forward. Baylor at West Virginia. The Mountaineers won this 27-21 in double overtime. Baylor scored a touchdown late in the fourth to tie it and force overtime. Then they exchanged touchdowns in the first overtime. But then Baylor's Charlie Brewer threw a pick, and West Virginia was able to score and get the win. Neither offense looked comfortable at all.
Brewer's got nothing, man.
Brewer just hasn't really developed much. And then Jarrett Dagey for West Virginia, he struggled too. He threw 2 picks. There were 6 turnovers in this game. It was pretty ugly. Baylor, I mean, they only had 250 yards of offense, so not great. Both defenses played well, but the offenses need to improve to do well in the Big 12. Then finally, Ole Miss at Kentucky. All aboard the Lane train here, boys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They won 42-41 in overtime. Matt Corral was a stud, 24-29, 4 touchdowns, led the Rebels in rushing. Tough loss for Kentucky, though, for a few reasons. One, they outgained Ole Miss by 100 yards, putting up 559. They had 400 yards rushing, too. Number 2, they missed an extra point after scoring first in overtime. That's, of course, a killer.
Yeah.
And number three, kind of the play of the game was early on, Asim Rose had he had a run for 72 yards, which should have been 75 and a touchdown, but he prematurely celebrated by doing the Tyreek Hill peace sign celebration. He even pointed to the crowd before getting the end zone. He got tackled. But
it's unbelievable how often this is happening.
Happened a lot this past week.
That's awful. But then you compound it with a couple plays later, he fumbles at the goal line, which honestly, it kind of looked like he scored. Kentucky might have got hosed there, but he fumbled, turned the ball over, and tough sequence for Kentucky.
I mean, yeah, it happened in another game too. I forget which one this Saturday, but somebody else.
Yeah, I think it was like Abilene
Abilene Christian.
It was some
Army
obscure school that it happened to.
Somebody,
yeah. Just get in the end zone before you start celebrating.
Unreal.
Okay. Well, I've got Arkansas upsetting Mike Leach and Mississippi State 21-14. That broke Arkansas's 20-game SEC losing streak. So Great win for Sam Pittman, and Felipe Franks played well. Costello did not. Threw 3 picks, only 5.3 yards per attempt. Didn't help that the star running back Kylan Hill went down early in the game, but just, I guess that's what everyone's been saying. This is the Mike Leach experience. He's going to pull off some big upsets and lay some eggs. So that's so far what they've done through 2 games. Yeah. Alabama won easy against Texas A&M, 52-24. Mac Jones is, I think, very good, and he's got another weapon now. The sophomore John Mechie, 181 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Alabama's just a monster, and A&M does not look improved at all through 2 games. Virginia Tech controlled the game most of the way and won at Duke, 38-31. Khalil Herbert's been great this year. 20 carries for 208 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns, and pretty impressive win for Virginia Tech considering they were down 21 players due to COVID, including their top 4 corners and a starting safety.
Wow.
So Chase Bryce was not able to take advantage. And then finally, AAC dark horse SMU took down Memphis.
I'll get it.
30-27. Game-winning field goal at the end. So Memphis got off to a slow start, which I guess is not that surprising. They hadn't played in about a month due to COVID issues. They had to miss a couple weeks in practice. This is me making excuses for
I mean,
Memphis.
It did play a factor. That's for darn sure. But
yeah. But Shane Bichelle had a great game. Reggie Roberson, his receiver, 243 receiving yards, and he only played 3 quarters because unfortunately he suffered a non-contact knee injury that did not look good at the end of that 3rd quarter. But Memphis still had a chance to win the game. They had the ball late, just about in field goal range for their Lou Groza candidate kicker, but Brady White fumbled, and SMU got the ball and made a field goal of their own.
Sure did.
They sure did.
All
what
right.
a dark horse. Man, sometimes dark horses win, right? Yeah.
Sure do, Mike. They sure do. All right. First game for me, North Carolina at BC. North Carolina looked good early, but Boston College, they were gaming this one. Phil Dracovic is looking pretty legit. He's looking like a difference maker for BC. Threw for over 300 yards and led a game-tying drive in the last minute of the game. Unfortunately, the 2-point conversion attempt was intercepted, and UNC returned it all the way for 2 points to ice the game. So North Carolina did hang on. They won 26-22. You know, I guess if you're North Carolina, you lost a lot of these games last year. So if you're winning these types of games now, then I guess you're happy. You know, you're just happy with any win. So although it was a little concerning, but hey, BC's not too bad. Next game, NC State at Pitt. Back and forth game here. Kenny Pickett, he led a late touchdown drive in the 4th quarter, and Pitt took the lead by 5. They're up 29-24, but they missed the 2-point conversion to go up by 7, which ended up being huge because Devin Leary on the next drive turned around and led a 79-yard touchdown drive and took the lead with just 23 seconds to go. And they ended up winning 30-29. So a big win for NC State, kind of a unexpected one. And you didn't expect them to go in and win at Pitt. Disappointing for Narduzzi and company. And NC State's just, they're inconsistent, but hey, they got a couple wins under their belt already. So big win for them. 3rd game, I got Missouri at Tennessee. Tennessee took care of business here big time. They won 35-12. Garantano was solid. Vols rushed for 230 yards. Didn't turn the ball over. Had just 3 penalties. So those are some pretty good numbers if you're looking at it from being just a solid group. Good start to the year though for the Vols. 2-0, beat 2 decent teams. Missouri, not looking good. My last game, Texas Tech at K-State. Both starting quarterbacks ended up leaving the game due to injuries here in this one. Thankfully, it doesn't appear either is going to be long-term. We should see Skylar Thompson and Alan Bowman back. Yes, I got it. Thank you for the help.
I just didn't want you
to leave me hanging. Ryan. I get it. Yeah,
I would want you to say it for me, please.
Yes, but the backups actually came in and did solid. Especially Will Howard for K-State. He probably actually gave K-State a little bit of a spark there. That little guy, K-State man, Deuce Vaughn.
Deuce Vaughn, Ryan. Deuce Vaughn is his name.
He's fun.
He's fun to watch.
Darren Sproles 2.0.
Yeah, he is. He had nearly 200 yards total offense, a couple touchdowns, helped K-State get a big 31-21 win.
Okay. Before we get to our segment here, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor. We'd appreciate it if you'd consider them. It's MyBookie. Winning season has returned at MyBookie. That means doubling your first deposit. It means bonuses, cross-sport wagers, and player props, including Heisman bets. Every week they have updated Heisman odds, so you can take a look at those. At MyBookie, winning season means watching live sports and betting live sports all season long. So to get in on the action, use promo code CFBROS. So that's all caps CFBROS to double your first deposit. So new players get up to $1,000 in free play matched. So Trey, Ryan, and I, we've all signed up, and we've got some free play money that
another one this weekend. Another like free $10 they gave you.
Oh, another bonus. What was that again?
All you had to do was bet $20 on the on the Patriots Chiefs game, then they gave you 10 free bucks to play with. You could really have used it at any point, but it was really, you could use the $10 for the second game, the Packers and the Falcons. So
yeah,
it ended up paying off for me.
There's always bonuses like that. And with the free play money from our sign up, we're just kind of spraying the board on Saturday, and just makes it fun to have action on every game.
Yep.
Something to cheer for. So bet with the best this college football season for your chance to win big. Again, that's promo code CFBROS to double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie. All right. Appreciate it, MyBookie. Let's get to our segment. We've got some news here. The Pac-12 came out with their schedule for the season. What stood out to you guys?
I guess you just got to go with the team that drew the short straw. That would be UCLA. They have to go to Oregon, and they're one crossover matchup that these teams have. So that stinks for UCLA. They already facing an uphill battle there. Now they just made it even harder on them. Opposite side, Michael, you got to like your squad's draw. USC. They got the Cougs coming at home. It's a pretty good one.
That is a pretty good draw for sure.
I think the best draw though would be Utah. They get the Beavers coming to Salt Lake, and then they also get USC, maybe the favorite in the South, coming to Salt Lake. So sets up well if Utah can maybe take advantage. But
yeah, the other thing there was kind of two things that caught my eye. One of the biggest games of the year is the first game of the year, ASU at USC. Games at 9 a.m. local time.
Yeah.
Pac-12 experiment. I mean, that's just crazy.
That stinks.
They've kind of rumored it in the past, but they're going to go for it this year. And I guess it's the year to try it. So that'll be interesting. And then it did with some of these schedules amongst the conferences, it seemed like favoritism kind of played a factor where they were trying to have the top teams, or at least the top favorites, get some home games. But the Pac-12 kind of actually addressed that. And they said that they had two main principles for their scheduling. And one was they needed to ensure that each team got 3 home and 3 road games, of course. But the other one was they didn't want to change the locations of the future schedules of the divisional games. So like they were talking about, I wrote it down here. They had an example. So this year, Oregon is supposed to play their divisional Wazoo in Pullman. If the game would have moved to Eugene this year, though, for Oregon to play for USC to open up the schedule, Wazoo would have had to play in Eugene for 3 straight years. Otherwise, they would have had to change the future schedule. So I guess it was just messy, and they tried to avoid that as much as possible. Maybe that's their excuse, but
yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts into putting into
hard to
schedules.
say, but it doesn't seem like a coincidence that in the SEC, Big Ten, and Pac-12, the good schools, quote unquote, seem to get a break.
I agree.
But I'll say what I saw was Washington, I think, is maybe, obviously USC is a big winner just with having to, with getting rid of the non-conference, Alabama and Notre Dame. But just as far as even the in-conference, I think Washington maybe was the biggest winner, because they still do have to go at Cal and at Oregon, probably the 2 biggest competitors in the North, which sucks. But in their original Pac-12 schedule, they had to also go at Utah and at USC from the South. So they were getting screwed. Like they were, even if you thought they were good, they were very unlikely to win the Pac-12. Now they get rid of Utah and USC, and instead they have Arizona. Oof. So that's a pretty big win for them.
That's true. If you consider the original schedule, that's a pretty big win.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's get to a top 5 list from Trey. And Ryan and I have no idea what Trey is about to say.
That's right. My I don't even know what I'm going to say.
It appears Trey doesn't know what he's about to say.
No, it's the top 5 quarterbacks this year, and this isn't based on Heisman rankings or draft ranking. It's just purely based on who I've enjoyed watching
Trey's
so
opinions?
far this season.
Oh, okay.
So top 5 who Trey's enjoyed watching this season at quarterback.
That's right. Number 5. Well, first of all, I've got an honorable mention. Grayson McCall.
Okay.
Grayson McCall, podcast favorite, freshman for Coastal Carolina. He's been great. But okay.
Big game this week.
Number 5, Max Duggan. He's really only played a game and a half. Came in against Iowa State, nearly came back, and then he outplayed Ellinger, as we touched on earlier. He just seems like a tough dude, laying his body on the line, overcoming kind of that heart condition in the offseason. He's kind of like a young ex-TCU quarterback, Andy Dalton. So Duggan's been fun. Number 4, Kyle Trask. He's tied for second in the nation, throwing 10 touchdowns, only played 2 games. Clear command of Dan Mullen's offense, and obviously we touched on the connection he has with Kyle Pitts, off the charts. Ryan's number 1 pick too.
Keeps rising.
He is rising up draft board.
Yeah, I give him that, especially since Trey Lance didn't look all that great. All right, number 3, Derek King. Was a fan of him at Houston. I was a little skeptical. I wanted to see how it panned out, but through the first 3 games, he appears to be kind of at that Houston level, completing 2/3 of his passes, over 5.5 yards per rush. He's 7 touchdowns, no picks, and again, he thrived in that Louisville game on national TV. I'm excited to watch Miami's offense now. Number 2, Matt Corral, second in the nation. In terms of completing 76.5% of his passes. It's fun watching him matched up with Lane Kiffin on that Ole Miss offense, averaging over 400 yards of offense. And he's looked good against 2 pretty good teams, Florida and Kentucky, in their first couple games. No slouches. So they're going to be fun to watch, and Corral is one of the reasons why. And number 1, Zach Wilson, BYU. He leads the nation, completing almost 85% of his passes. He's tied for first in yards per attempt, 13.4. I just like the edge he has to him. He's got a little bit of moxie. His dual threat ability is fun to watch. And I know BYU hasn't played much competition, but they are just blasting them. So that's good.
Yeah, that's a good list. And with Zach Wilson, it's I always love when it seems like every year, a few games into the season, there's some quarterback where you're comparing his incompletions to his touchdowns thrown. You know, it's like, oh, he's thrown more I don't know exactly where he's at right now, but I think it's pretty close. So
yeah,
he only had 2 incompletions like last game, right? So
yeah, 85% completion rate, not too bad.
Okay,
Herb Street has him 4th, right?
Oh, does he?
I think Herb Street put him 4th in there.
Heisman voting or something.
No, I'm sorry, BYU. 4th.
Oh, he put BYU 4th?
Yeah,
BYU's starting to get respect in the computers just because of the way they're blasting teams. Strength of schedule, no good, but
yeah.
Ryan, you're saying they have a chance to playoff
if they continue to dominate like they do, and they whip up on Boise and like San Diego State.
They need Boise to be like
they need Boise to be really good.
Or however much they need.
I'm hoping they can get a late other team on their schedule somehow.
Yeah, hopefully, they can schedule some power team, but we'll see.
Nobody's gonna really want to play them.
That's true. Let's get to our week 6 picks, and we'll start here with Florida minus 6.5 at Texas A&M. What do you think, Trey?
This one's tough in the sense that I'm having a difficult time figuring out this Aggie team. We of course have talked about the opt-outs that aren't helping them, but we still don't know their offensive identity. Against Vandy, they obviously we touched on how they didn't look great, and then on the road at Bama, it's kind of tough to gauge. I'm just going to go off what I'm seeing, and that's that Florida's better right now. I trust their offense much more at this point. We talk about Pitts, but there's also weapons like Tony and Grimes. Damian Pierce has run the ball pretty well, so I'm going to lay the points with the Gators.
Yeah, I 100% agree. A&M has not been impressive to me. They just both sides of the ball has been pretty rough. Alabama did whatever they wanted. Vanderbilt made it a close game at Texas A&M. That does not give me encouragement that they can stay within a touchdown of Florida, who's firing on all cylinders offensively. Not the greatest defense in the world so far, but I don't care. They're looking good. I like Florida huge. I'm taking them and making them my lock.
All right. I'm going the other way. I'm going to take Texas A&M. I guess I'm giving them one more chance. I'm not as confident going the other way, though, as Ryan is on Florida. I think the score for A&M against Vandy was a little bit misleading. So that's kind of factoring into people downgrading A&M. And then against Bama, I'm almost just going to completely throw out that game. Like, I just think Bama is just head and shoulders above all these teams in the West. So I think they're going to do that to everyone. So I guess my point is I just haven't docked A&M quite as much yet as maybe everyone else has. So we'll see if Mike Elko can slow down Florida's offense a little bit more than Ole Miss.
This is the game.
South
This is
Carolina.
put up or shut up time.
It is, yeah. I mean, if they just get blasted, which is certainly possible, then oof, not good for Jimbo.
It's got to turn around sometime with the talent, but.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Virginia Tech, North Carolina. Very excited for this game.
Yeah,
Tar Heels are favored by 5. Ryan.
Yeah, and it appears your boy will be the starter for this one, Hendon Hooker.
Have they said that yet?
I think it sounded very promising.
Fuente was optimistic.
Yeah, it sounded pretty promising.
I'm with you though. I really think that he will be. Like, it would shock me if he wasn't.
Yeah, I think Fuente, if he didn't come out and say it like 100%, I think it's like he pretty much said it in a matter of speaking. So, and it's also because Burmeister has not been very good. They've really just won because of their ground game. I mean, they've been dominant running the ball. So Hendon Hooker should be an improvement over Burmeister, who he struggled last week at Duke. He was at Duke. He really wasn't very good. So somehow they were still able to pull it out. But so if you give Hendon Hooker with the good ground game, they got a defense that can put some pressure on Sam Howell. They got 13 sacks in 2 games so far. So they're leading the nation as far as per game sacks. So they're getting to the QB, which will obviously rattle Howell a little bit. I like the Hokies. I think they're going to keep this one close. I think it's neck and neck. Could go either way. So I'll take those 5 points.
I am with you. I've been all in on Virginia Tech. I had them as my lock over before the season for the ACC. So I'm going to make them my lock. It does worry me that their secondary is maybe still depleted. I mean, we don't know with the contact tracing whether those guys will be back this weekend, but that's a concern going up against Sam Howell. I know he's, I guess you could say, gotten off to somewhat of a slow start. He's thrown a few picks. I will say that the yards per play differential for North Carolina has still been very good. So maybe their scores have been a little bit misleading in how close they've been. But I just like Virginia Tech. Love Hendon Hooker coming back. That's the big reason. Combined with that running game, I think that offense is going to be great. Offensive line's playing really well. And defensively, not only, even though the secondary is an issue, like you said, Ryan, they can get pressure, and they get pressure from that defensive. Almost all those
D-line, yeah.
Guys on the D-line. Justice Reed has been a big impact transfer from, I believe, Youngstown State. So, yeah, Virginia Tech
and
lock.
Florida.
This was this is a rematch of that game last year that went 6 overtimes, and they had to do that new 2-point conversion rule after 4 overtimes. And I'm kind of with you guys. I'm taking Virginia Tech as well. I'm assuming that they're going to get back most of the COVID quarantiners, if you will. But something's got to give, because the Hokies lead the nation in rushing in terms of yards per rush, and North Carolina is actually the best in the country against the run. But they've really benefited from playing 2 of the weaker offensive teams. They played Syracuse and Boston College, so not exactly murderer's row for Carolina. And so this is going to be a step up for them. I think Howell and the Heels will put up some points, but I think the Hokies can keep it within 5.
Okay, we got Texas against OU in the Red River Shootout. OU is favored 2. And this is as close to a loser leaves town match as you're going to get, I think, in the Red River Shootout. Both teams badly need a win. I think it's going to be back and forth like it often is. Both teams are pretty similar to me. Questionable defenses, both good offenses. I think I just trust Lincoln Riley and OU a little more. Nothing that's happened this season, like both of them have underperformed a little bit. So, Texas just happened to win, miraculously in one of their close games against Texas Tech. But basically, I feel like they've been the same. So I'm just leaning on my preseason thought that OU is a few points better than Texas. So that's why I'm going to lay the points.
It's totally fair. I mean, it's a toss-up, just like the point spread says. And like you said, they literally are mirror images. Their offense and defensive ratings are eerily similar in SP+. It's a tough one to predict. I'm gonna take the 2 points for whatever it is with Texas. At this point, I guess I trust Ellinger a little bit more than Rattler. I mean, you can't go wrong either way. They've been a little bit more balanced on offense as well this year. They've had a little bit better rushing attack. Last week I was dead wrong on thinking OU would really bounce back. So I guess this week I'll say Texas does it. And Ellinger he had one of those, not quite to the same effect, but one of those Tebow-like press conferences after the game. So maybe they'll kind of rally behind that, and Texas gets the win.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Trey. I really can't separate these teams. It's just you're really splitting hairs between them. Like Trey did say, one small factor is I do trust Ellinger more than Rattler at this point. So with that and just 2 points, I'll take 2 points. I mean, that's not zero. So,
Yeah.
I'll take 2 and say, hey, I'll take it. And if it's a 2-point game, I'll be happy. But yeah, I'll take Texas.
Okay, we got Tennessee at Georgia, and Georgia's favored 12.5, Trey.
I've really liked how the Vols have handled their business, going 2-0. The first 2 weeks kind of won games that they should. Garantano seems more comfortable. Running game's been great with Ty Chandler and Eric Gray. But now the problem is just how suffocating that Georgia defense is. I mean, we saw what they did to Auburn, and they just completely engulfed them and made them look really bad. The Vols, they need the offense. They have a great offensive line. They need that run game to succeed if they want any chance in this one. Georgia's D, though, it's just historically good so far. I'm gonna take the Bulldogs until someone puts numbers up on that defense. Their offense had been the question mark, but we touched on it. The run game picked up a little bit last week, and I think they'll rely on that and get the win here.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't trust Tennessee to be able to move the ball against Georgia. I mean, Tennessee's getting better. There's no doubt about it, but Georgia just looks too good. And on the flip side, when Georgia's offense is on the field, Tennessee's defense has been, they've been solid, no doubt about it. But Georgia's offense seems to have woken up. Of course, they rushed for over 200 yards against a good Auburn defense. So I think it's a tall task for Tennessee to go into Georgia against that type of defense. Where Garantano, yeah, he's been better, but he's obviously had his inconsistent moments throughout his career, and a Georgia defense will probably exploit that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I hate to be that guy, guys, but it is Garantano, right? I think it's a weird pronunciation.
It sounds better with Garantano.
It does seem like it should be Garantano, but
didn't even realize I said that. Yeah.
Nah. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Garantano, so I really think that Tennessee. No. I think Trey, you pointed out, I feel like the key is if Tennessee's O-line can have success against Georgia. And, they've been rotating guys in. They're going like 9 deep on that offensive line, which is pretty cool. A lot of talent there, but I'm just going to bet on Georgia's defense. Like you said, historically good. And I think they're going to make a lot of decent or good offenses look bad this year. I think they'll do that this weekend. So, I'll go Georgia, maybe 27-14 type of game.
Yeah.
Okay, Alabama -23 at Ole Miss. We got Saban against Lane Kiffin, and this is one of probably a few games this week that I guess could potentially be affected by the hurricane. So watch out for that. But what do you think about this game, Ryan?
Well, Alabama will pretty much put whatever they want up on the scoreboard, and that Ole Miss defense is just not looking too strong. But when you go to the flip side, Ole Miss has been very, very good on offense. 77 points against Florida and Kentucky. Obviously not. Those are two teams that usually have good defenses, so that's impressive performances. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ole Miss put up like 30 points in this one. I think they can, with that type of explosiveness that they have, more Corral, Ely. I mean, they're pretty darn good. So I know it's going to be pretty much a touchdown almost every time when Alabama gets it, but I think Ole Miss can do enough. So I can see this being like a 49-28 type of game where it's they put up enough to cover that.
I feel like who's the guy in Old School, the political commentator that was like,
James Carville.
James Carville, yeah, that was perfect. I have nothing to add. Yeah, I think it could be a backdoor cover here for Ole Miss because obviously Bama's going to put up as many points as they want, but Ole Miss is not going to stop. Like that offense is,
Yeah.
I don't know if the points are going to come late. They might, when Alabama has the backups in, but they'll put up some points.
Kiffin's going to get some points, man. He wants to put points up. So
yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm going to take Ole Miss. Saban, he's 20-0 against his former coaches.
I ain't going to win the game, but
no, I know he'll be 21-0 after Saturday. Maybe. But the over/under too. I mean, assuming the weather holds out, the over/under right now is 67, pretty high for a Bama game. So the odds makers are kind of expecting a 45, 22, 23 type game. So I think Ole Miss can keep it within the 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. By the way, my call me crazy prediction in the preseason was OU going down at Iowa State. Another one of mine was that Ole Miss was gonna either beat Bama or at LSU. So
LSU looks certainly possible.
LSU looks more possible, but hey,
I wouldn't even really call that great.
It would obviously be shocking, but it's in play. You never know.
Yeah, could happen. A couple turnovers from Mac Jones.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, we got Miami at Clemson. Clemson is favored 14, and this is the 3rd straight game for Miami that game day will be at.
It's crazy,
very crazy. And it's going to be Clemson's first real test. Trevor Lawrence has just been perfect. Like I saw some of his PFF stats, his accuracy rating compared to the rest of the country right now is just out of this world. So we'll see if his receivers can get open against a really good defense. I think they'll be fine. Mostly though, excited to watch De'Aaron King and Miami's offense get their biggest test for sure of the season by far. And it kind of reminds me of when Houston went at OU last year. De'Aaron King, they were outmatched from a talent standpoint, but King just kind of made things happen. Like he was getting harassed in the backfield. He had to turn a lot of negative plays into positive ones. He had 100 yards rushing. So I think something like that could happen where it might not look pretty. Maybe his completion percentage isn't super high, but King is going to make some plays to kind of keep them in the game to some extent. But overall, I think 14 points just was a little too short for me. I was expecting Clemson to be maybe like a 17-point favorite. So I guess I just trust them more. I'll lay the 14, but I'm going to be cheering for De'Aaron King to keep it close.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm going to take the Canes plus the 14. I mean, last week, Virginia was able to generate a decent amount of offense on Clemson, and I don't see why Rhett Lashley's offense with King, of course, can't do the same. They've had an off week to prepare. They're going to need, the problem obviously is their defense. They're going to have to, Louisville was able to get some big chunk plays on them. If they can avoid a lot of those against Clemson, then they might have a chance to be in this game late. And it's going to be Clemson's first real test with their talented but young, semi-inexperienced defense. That's what I'm really anxious to see, is how much Lashley's offense can do against that Clemson D. But I think no matter which way this game goes, we are going to learn a lot about who these teams are going forward after this game.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with Trey here, though. I'll go with the U. I'll take the 2 touchdowns. Just with how good Miami has looked so far. I've been, I wasn't high on them obviously coming into the year. I just didn't think the offense would be able to click. But I've been wrong so far. They've been awesome. De'Aaron King has returned to the De'Aaron King we knew at Houston. He's been impressive. And Michael, like you said, you kind of were making the argument. De'Aaron King's just going to find a way to make some points. I mean, he did it when he was live at Houston, and now he's doing it again here at Miami. And I'm surprised by it, but I believe it. I'm seeing it with my eyes the first few weeks. So yeah, I say he does enough, and they keep it interesting. They're not going to win, I don't think, but they're looking pretty legit. So yeah, I'll take them.
Okay, let's get to some honorable mentions this weekend.
Alrighty then. Number 1 here for me. I got Tulane at Houston. Houston's finally going to get to play. It's been forever. They're favored 6.5. This one's going to be played on Thursday. I'm going to take the road dog here. I'll take Tulane plus the 6.5. They put up 66 points last week at Southern Miss. They rushed for over 400 yards. So I think they can give Houston all they can handle, especially when Tulane, they've already played, 4 games, I think, this year so far. So it's quite a discrepancy in the amount of where they are in their season. So I think I'll take the green wave there. Louisville is favored 4 at Georgia Tech. This one's being played Friday. I know Louisville's 1-2 right now, but they lost to a good-looking Miami squad, and they lost at Pitt in a very close battle. So those are not anything to be, sad about or whatever about to get down on. So Georgia Tech just doesn't pose near the challenge that those other teams do. And I know Louisville doesn't have a good D, but I bet you Jeff Sims will give it to him a couple of times. So I think Louisville might be able to separate themselves. I just don't think Georgia Tech's going to be able to keep up. So I got Louisville minus the 4 there. The third game, it's LSU at Missouri now. That game was originally supposed to be played in Baton Rouge, but Hurricane Delta has kind of threatened the area, so they're going to move it to Missouri. I'm going with LSU in this game. Missouri seems kind of lost to me. I haven't been impressed with either quarterback Robinson or Bazelak. They just haven't been that great. And the defense is, with as poor as the offense has been, they haven't been able to kind of match or step up what they needed to. So, and I know it was Vandy, but at least LSU got some good taste of positive momentum last week. Brandon looked good. They threw the ball over the yard, had 41 points. The offense looked better. So maybe they needed some reps. I think they're getting some reps now, and I think they'll go in and have some success at Mizzou. Finally, I got Texas Tech at Iowa State. Iowa State's favored 12.5. Pretty big spread, if you ask me. We're not sure about the health of Alan Bowman, Texas Tech's quarterback. He's listed as day-to-day, so we'll see. Henry Clumby came in. I think he's a Utah State transfer last week. He did fine at K-State. So either way, whoever plays, I'm going to take the Red Raiders. 12.5. In the Big 12, I'm almost to the point where I'm just going to take the underdog, in any game because they all just seem so even. Every game is just like neck and neck, no matter who it is, even if it's a huge favorite, like OU over Kansas State. It's just they're always so close. So I'll gladly take the 12.5. And other than Kansas, but other games.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Other games seem neck and neck.
Okay. I got NC State at Virginia. Virginia's favored 9.5. And this point spread is actually kind of right in line with what SP Plus would say. But, who are you going to trust? SP Plus or My Dumb Brain? Because My Dumb Brain thinks that this is way too much. It just seems like a lot. NC State seems hugely improved this year. Devin Leary has been great at quarterback. They've got, a banged up secondary is I guess the only concern for me here, but I'm not sure if Brennan Armstrong is the quarterback to take advantage of that. At least I, haven't necessarily seen that through 2 games. So give me NC State. Kansas State at TCU. TCU's favored 9. I guess I know what Ryan would take in this game.
You bet.
But so there's a chance Skylar Thompson could play coming back from injury, but as of this recording, we're not sure. So it might be the true freshman, Will Howard. But either way, Kansas State has played 3 horrible defenses so far. So I think this is going to be a much bigger test for that offense. And Max Duggan on Trey's list, he's through 1.5 games, looks much improved from last year. So I'll just roll with TCU. And then Coastal Carolina at Louisiana. Last year, this game was 48-7 in favor of Louisiana at Coastal. But Coastal is just a totally different team this year. They just blew out Arkansas State. Their freshman quarterback, Grayson McCall, Trey's honorable mention, is currently 4th in the nation in passer rating, just ahead of Trevor Lawrence. So, yes, he's better than Trevor Lawrence.
Clearly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Their defense is tied for 2nd in the nation in sacks. I got to roll with our favorite team, the Chants, +7.
It's only 7 at Lafayette.
I know, that's a lot of respect for Coastal.
Wow.
I know. But Louisiana's been playing some teams close. So.
Yeah, they have. But still, that's wow.
Yeah. Mississippi State at Kentucky. Kentucky is favored 2. Hard to predict Mississippi State, but I guess I'll lean towards my preseason pessimism and roll with Kentucky. Kentucky is probably worse than we thought coming into the year, but I still love the O-line, love the running game. Like Trey said, 400 yards rushing last game. Not sure why their secondary has been so bad so far because it wasn't last year. Yeah. That's a concern, but I think the defense is bound to get better as the season goes on. They've forced 0 turnovers so far. That is bound to turn around, and Costello has been very generous.
Yeah,
he's
prone to the
needs
turnover.
This game, man.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, my first game, I've got Arkansas at Auburn. Auburn's laying 14. I'm taking the chalk and Auburn here, and I'm actually going to make them my lock. I know Arkansas just upset Mississippi State. Auburn got smashed by Georgia, but I look at it like it was a great spot for Arkansas, considering Mississippi State was coming off the high of beating LSU, and then Auburn ran into the Georgia buzzsaw on the road. I just don't think Arkansas, of course, doesn't have that Georgia D. I think they're going to bounce back on the Plains. Pitt is favored 6 at Boston College. How's Pitt going to respond after that heartbreaking loss to NC State? I'm actually going to take Hafley's BC boys and the points. They took North Carolina down to the final seconds last week. Defense has improved a little bit from last year. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game given how good Pitt's defense is as well, but Pitt only has the 71st ranked SP plus offense. I think BC keeps it close at home. South Carolina's favored by 13 at Vanderbilt. I don't really like giving this many points with South Carolina, but I am going to do it here. Vandy's shown very little on offense the first couple games of the year. And quarterback Colin Hill, running back Kevin Harris for South Carolina, they've had some success against 2 top SEC teams, Florida and Tennessee. Tough schedule to start. I think they can take it out on the weaker Commodores. And then finally, Florida State at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is given 21. Not many times in your life have you seen Florida State as a 3-touchdown underdog. I don't like really anything about this Seminoles team right now. They were struggling against Jacksonville State last week before third stringer Jordan Travis came in and he led the comeback win. He did look pretty good, but again, it was Jacksonville State. Maybe he'll be the spark they needed to turn the season around, but I need to see him do it against a team like Notre Dame, a top 10 defense on the road in South Bend before I buy in. So I'm actually going to take Notre Dame.
You're kind of going with the favorites there.
I took BC, but yeah.
BC, usually, yeah. I'm with you though. I pick the same.
Yeah. Okay. And by the way, like with Florida State, I haven't heard any rumors or anything, but at what point, if the season keeps kind of going the way it is, maybe they'll get it turned around. But guys like Marvin Austin and Hamza Nasruddin,
hang it. Tomorrow and Terry, maybe, who knows? Just hang it up.
I don't know. I thought there would be more of that this year. Maybe we'll see it, but I guess it's good to see that they've been sticking it out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's close out the episode here with a questionable finish. After several cancellations, Houston finally gets to play this week. What's something you've been waiting a long time for?
I've been waiting a long time to get me a Raising Cane's around me now. You guys got it down there in San Diego.
We just did. It just opened like a few weeks ago.
And now I'm pretty jealous. I mean, I'll probably not like it quite as much if I do have it close. But it's just, it's money. I like the toast. I like the fries, the chicken finger. I mean, it's good stuff, man.
We've been recording late these podcasts, so I have late dinners. I'll edit it and then I'll go get some dinner late night. I've been going at like 1 a.m. each of the past 2 weeks to Raising Cane's.
What time do you wake up?
What time do I wake up?
Yeah.
Well, it's just once a week though, the podcast. Yeah.
No, but he said 3 nights.
I said 3 nights?
No, he said the last couple podcasts.
Yeah.
I said the last 3 nights. Oh, my bad. Sorry, Mike.
No. Yeah, last 3 nights I've been trying.
That's what you said.
That would have a problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, we brought this up on the live stream. My answer here is I've been waiting to get, you can't see on YouTube right now because I've adjusted the camera, but I've got blue tape on my wall because we're hanging up pictures and we're trying to measure it out. And we haven't bought the frames yet. So just some blue tape up there. I'm waiting.
Got a TV.
Got a TV behind me. Yeah. That's what counts.
Yeah.
This one's easy for me. I'm still waiting for the dang hole-in-one.
Oh, yeah.
The older I get, the more pressure I'm going to have to get one. So it better come soon.
Man.
Ooh, in the background here on my YouTube, you can see my hole-in-one trophy right there on the left.
Ooh,
that's nice.
Wow.
Where's mine? I don't even know where mine is.
Oh, yeah.
That old
don't
thing?
even know. Wow.
I don't know. Did I even get one? Yeah, I had to have gotten one.
It would be so great. Our dad already has 2. I know we've brought this up a million times, but if Ryan or I get another one.
One? Well, we only play like once a year now, so.
I know. That would make it
even worse.
Yeah. Dagger.
Okay. Kyle Trask said in an interview that he was actually named after the stadium where he's going to be playing this weekend, Kyle Field. If you could have been named after a stadium, which would you choose?
I think Neyland Newman has a good ring to it. Neyland Stadium, Neyland Newman.
Okay. I'll tell you what has a better ring to it. Schumann Newman. Schumann
nice.
Stadium is where Ball State plays. I just like the rhyme, Schumann Newman.
That's good. That's good.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the Levi's Stadium. What are you laughing at?
I thought you were going to go with the easy one.
Yeah, I thought you were going with Northwestern's Ryan Field.
Ryan Field. That's a good. Should have gone with that. I regret it.
Yeah.
Not going with that. No, Levi's. I like the name Levi. I think it's pretty cool. I coached a kid named Levi. I always thought that was kind of a cool name. So I like
but
that.
that's yeah.
It's not
Go
college
NFL.
stadium, but they play bowl games there.
What about the Bounce House Newman?
Ooh, I like
UCF.
that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our upset special. Got to pick a 7+ point underdog to win outright. And I hate to go against Billy Napier. I love Billy Napier, but like I said, I'm going with the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina to end Louisiana's perfect season. Grayson McCall, CJ Marable, the highly likely combo at receiver, opportunistic or kind of aggressive defense. So yeah, Coastal.
I was fortunate. I won last week. I had TCU against Texas.
You did.
This week I'm going with NC State. They're getting 9.5 or so at Virginia. I bagged a little bit on NC State in the offseason, the ACC preview, but I'm willing to eat crow if they have a decent year. Devin Leary played great. Michael, you mentioned that earlier. They put up 30 on a great Pitt D, so don't let me down, Wolfpack. I'm finally backing you.
Yeah, they're much improved. I also hit mine last week, Trey. So I had Iowa State beating OU.
Very nice.
I'm like 3-1 on my underdog picks now.
That's
I think.
awesome.
I know.
I think I'm 2-2 maybe.
That's pretty darn good too. I wish I bet it money line, but I should.
We're in. Oh, we might not have done one for week 1 because there's barely any.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I think that's been 4 so far. Yeah. This week I'm gonna take K-State. They're getting 9 at TCU. Big 12, man. I'm gonna stick with those spreads. I mean, K-State, they won at OU. They beat Texas Tech. TCU lost a close one to Iowa State. They did, and then they won a close one at Texas Tech. They're neck and neck, man. I just don't see a ton separating these two teams. So even if Skylar Thompson can't play, I still think with Will Howard, with what he showed, I think they could still give them TCU a run for their money.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening to the College Football Bros podcast. Again, if you're interested, go to MyBookie and use that promo code CFBROS. We don't get a cut of the losses. Don't worry. It's not like we're going to be profiting off like that, but it lets the sponsor know that we're getting the word out. So we would really appreciate that. And we will talk to you next week. Actually, no, not next week. Check out our live stream on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
All right. Goodbye.
You've been listening to the College Football Bros. If you have any questions for the next podcast, email them to collegefootballbros@gmail.com. To keep up with the brothers on social media, like them on Facebook at College Football Bros, follow them on Instagram at College Football Bros, and for their commentary on Saturdays, follow them on Twitter at CFB Bros. Thanks for listening.